Dave Filoni doesn't know Star Wars. With Ahsoka on the way, the growing pains of the Star Wars timeline are very evident. And with this interview, we know too much about how little they're paying attention. And we also have confirmation on something very exciting for Cal Kestis. Welcome to Star Wars Uplink, your place for everything Star Wars gaming, the TV shows, and the movies. Let's jump in.
Just you reconsider playing that message for him.
There's something very exciting happening with Jedi Survivor.
Yes, indeed.
This is the same kind of situation that we had with the first game, Jedi Fallen Order. We knew that they wouldn't let such a massive success go to waste. And we all but knew that they were going to be working on another game. Mm-hmm. And it seems like this is the same situation. And the game director for the series has pretty much said exactly that. He says, I always wanted to see this as a trilogy. How can we take Cal and the crew to new places beyond what we're doing in the first game? We had a pretty decent idea of time frame where we wanted Survivor to take place, what the stakes were going to be, what the tone of the game was going to be, what Cal was going to be up against, and how the crew was going to factor into that. And there's ideas of what could possibly be beyond that. And I have that same thought too.
As far as where you want to see Cal going, or just with like, yes, it needs to be a third game?
Yes, there needs to be a third game.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really fun to see the growth that Cal had. Going from someone who was very frightened to use the Force and became more mature in that, to what we see now as Cal Kestis as a very mature, very confident Jedi, or not necessarily even a Jedi, but like trying to uphold some of the visions and the thoughts around the idea of the Force, and to really support that going into further into Star Wars.
I think I was telling you about it, like when we had finished, I say we because I was just watching you finish the game.
The royal gameplay.
When we finished the game, I think I was kind of saying to you, I'm like, man, there really needs to be like a third one because A, just how it ended, and B, it really feels like with the first one they really show him as the apprentice.
Yeah.
And then in this second game it was now he's the knight. And now in the third game we're gonna get the master. Like just we're gonna get this punch of Cal and it's gonna be Yeah,
definitely. And I feel like this is following a very similar kind of story arc as like the original trilogy of movies, because you have Luke Skywalker, very green character when we see him in A New Hope, very like naive. We see him in the second movie go into like, he faces some really deep things and really goes into the struggles of what it means to be a Jedi in this time period. And then in the third movie, we see him really come into his own. We see Luke Skywalker be the character he needs to be. And we've made this connection before that Cal Kestis is honestly the new Luke Skywalker. Like he's the Luke Skywalker that we kind of wanted to see this entire time.
Yeah, I would agree. He's the Luke Skywalker of the games.
Yeah. And it's really fun to see that like exploration into this really new character and how much respect and care that they put into this character.
Truly.
And I feel like that's one of the ways that the book really fell short. Battle Scars, they leaned too far into the idea of Cal being this very naive character.
Yeah.
When Cal was never naive in Jedi Fallen Order. Like he was just rediscovering himself. Like he wasn't unintentionally, like he was hiding these specific parts of himself, and that's what made the story so great, is like really coming into his own as a character, and not being just completely dumb and oblivious to it.
Truly, yeah. He knew what he was doing, he knew why he was doing it, and it was mostly just the circumstances that pushed him to become the thing that he always needed to be.
Yeah.
But that he didn't want to be, because it was scary, it was dangerous.
Yeah.
And
well, he needed to hide because he would die if he did not like hide the Force in him.
Right. Yeah. So it's really good to see this character and truly this remodel of Luke. Like we are seeing this, and it's so nice to see that homage to the original Star Wars, and just
the respect for it too.
And I think that's why it feels Star Wars. Like some of the things that have come out, it doesn't quite hit, but Fallen Order definitely definitely did.
Yeah.
Just the Jedi.
Because he struggles with it. He struggles
Yeah.
with his strength. He struggles with the dark side. He struggles with like the anger, the resentment, the fear, what he actually wants, continuing to fight to almost like drown out his own thoughts. Like that's honestly where we meet him in the beginning of Jedi Survivor.
Truly.
And then through that story, we see a lot more of like an understanding of what he wants in his life, with his friendships, with his relationships, and seeing where he really wants to go in the galaxy. And that's really fun to see.
Yeah. I'm going to be so fascinated to see where they take him. I mean, we've gotten to...
If the Cal-Marin relationship is thrown into turmoil again, I'm going to strike.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and sit out front of Respawn's headquarters with a sign that says, "Make Cal X Marin great again."
Seriously.
Yeah.
That was such an interesting relationship beat that they had going on. The sexual tension was really strong.
It's palpable. As we were playing through it, spoiler alert, slight spoiler alert. We all know it. We've all seen the screenshots. We've all seen the kiss. But... yeah, like she would come in.
Yeah,
I'd be playing it, and then she'd be like, "Have they talked about the kiss?"
Yeah, have we talked? Have
and
we
it'd
had
been
a
like
conversation?
5 hours
Yeah.
as I was like going through on these side quests and like going to these different areas. I went through some of those story missions, and it didn't pick up again until like much later in the game.
Like, are we gonna talk about it?
Yeah.
Hello. Man, they were definitely pulling some heartstrings on me. So
Yeah,
like
come
I
on.
need to know.
I need to know. I need closure.
What's going on here.
Yeah.
I don't think they know what's going on here.
But yeah, hopefully they don't do any of that. I feel like we're due a good relationship in Star Wars. Han Solo and Leia eventually dissolves with the Force Awakens. We find out that they just separated, and like, come on. We need to see some good relationships here in Star Wars. Not just single dads,
Please,
saving the galaxy, but I think it would be fun to see something like that explored in the video games in particular. But what do you think this means? Like the announcement coming for that they're basically all this stems from their hiring specifically for the next Jedi Survivor game, pretty much, and they're looking to beef that up. So the first game came out in 2019. 2023 is when we got the second game. So they're doing really good with their like turnarounds of their
that's a great
4
time frame.
years. So comes out 2027. It may come out before Star Wars Eclipse does.
Yep.
What do you want to see? So a lot can happen in 4 years.
Yeah.
It's been a hard 5 years.
I know. Are they gonna do another time jump?
I think they have to, honestly.
Yeah.
But they are pushing close to the Battle of Yavin. So yeah, Jedi Survivor was 9 BBY. So they do have they could do another 5-year jump, honestly.
Yeah, I think it would probably.
I think they
make
at least
sense.
need to have some kind of time jump, honestly.
Yes, because we leave them on a planet that's hidden away. What are they going to do with it? What are they doing with this kid? What's going on? Like, yeah, there's going to need to be that push forward as well as tension, like that time to make a tension come to be.
Yeah, wanting to see what's going on with their lively crew.
I really don't know. I would never have thought they were going to go this direction from Jedi Survivor.
Yeah.
Like that was also a jump.
Jedi
like,
Fallen Order to Jedi Survivor was quite the change. Definitely tonally, like it definitely matured that story. As Cal deepens his connections and his wants and understanding like what his goals are in the galaxy, not just, oh, hey, I need to fight the Empire until I die, bringing down as much of the stormtroopers or evil or whatever his goals are in Star Wars down to... Now he has hope. There is a place for them to go. There is this idea of freedom, expansion, and something to really aim for.
Yeah, I think they will play with that definitely a lot more too. Yeah, there's going to be...
Maybe it's a 3-year time jump to where you get 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, or maybe you do a 5-year jump and then it's... What is it, 3 or 4 years until? I
wonder if they're going to... I mean, they have to. There's been such a theme of family
yes.
in the shows. It feels like a show to me because I just watch. But in these games, that I'll be really curious to see how that evolves. And changes him because now he does have that thing to hope for, and he's going to have people that, even though he always has had these people to protect and want to keep safe, it's going to be so much more, especially with this.
Yeah, there's more to lose too.
Yeah. I'm not going to claim to know where they're going to go with all this, but family's definitely going to be a big part of that.
Well, Jedi Survivor takes place at the same time that Obi-Wan Kenobi takes place. So there is a very interesting connection there. And we're starting into more of like, it's not quite Rebels timeline, but we're getting close there.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting close to like Solo. I think Solo takes place 5 years before A New Hope. So we would be getting closer to that Solo time frame. That could be a fun tie-in, or like they could definitely play around with this really interesting time in the galaxy. Maybe it is more geared towards that. You have Outlaws that fills in the gaps between like The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. What if you see almost that gap in between where like Solo is and A New Hope? That could be interesting because of all the syndicates, because of like Darth Maul's group, and because of all these different changes and adjustments and all of this stuff. I feel like that could be a very interesting timeline for them to explore.
It does make me think about like, what are we going to see as far as like, the timeline and stuff like that. Like what's going on, and how is Cal going to affect it in his little way of just being like passing by, like, oh, this is where we are,
fleshing out that story.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know.
Speaking though of complicated timelines and where things could be placed in Star Wars, I feel like we have a very great example of like the usage of the timeline in The Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. There's just the Jedi series.
Yeah.
I feel like we have a great example of what can really be done when you flesh out a time period in Star Wars. And then in something that feels like they're building the rocket as they're flying it, you have the complicated relationship with Dave Filoni and timelines in Star Wars. You have Jon Favreau saying, oh yeah, it was 2 years that passed in between season 2 / Book of Boba Fett and what we see in season 3 of Star Wars. And then you have Dave Filoni being like, no, it all happened in the year. Seasons 1, 2, and 3 all happened 9 ABY. And that is, it's interesting. The fact that there isn't this like clarity on when things are taking place and what's happening in the galaxy, because I feel like there's constraint. I feel like Dave Filoni / Jon Favreau / Kathleen Kennedy, whoever is involved with those decisions, but mostly Dave Filoni at this point with his vision for the Mandoverse. I feel like there's constraints and fear and concerns around how quickly they could be going to what we see of The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens takes place at 34 ABY, so after the Battle of Yavin. Force Awakens is 34 years after, apparently. Mandalorian, we know for sure Mandalorian Season 1 takes place at 9 ABY. So 9 years after the Battle of Yavin. We see what happens to these characters and the creation of the Mandoverse. And then Season 2 happens, which I think Season 2 can feasibly take place a number of months after Season 1.
Okay.
I feel like that's not too big of a jump.
Yeah.
Where it gets really complicated is Book of Boba Fett.
Yes.
If you're looking at like, oh hey, Book of Boba Fett, the Season 2 finale for The Mandalorian was so emotional and so gut-wrenching. And to have all of that happen, let's just say January of 9 ABY, whatever the time frames are, months, whatever. Let's just say we know it's a year. They do have a year system, however that's calculated. Let's just say January Season 1 of Mandalorian takes place.
Yep.
And then let's say April or May is when Season 2 takes place. Okay, that checks out.
Yeah.
Book of Boba Fett, to have any semblance of like any emotion, it has to be at least 3 months, right? At least 3 months after Season 2. Otherwise, like, what the heck is Mando doing? Just like, oh, hey guys, let's go see. He didn't even give Grogu a chance to learn anything if it wasn't a number of months.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I'm just trying to piece it all in my head of like what happened.
That's why I'm using like our months.
Right. I'm trying to piece together in my head though, like what happens in all these seasons and things. Yeah, it would have to at least have been 3 months.
Right, at minimum.
Minimum.
Let's give them some grace here and let's just say 3 months. August/September is when Book of Boba Fett would take place.
Grogu goes to school.
Grogu goes to school. And that's only 3 months left in this year time period.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently, in this hypothetical month-year calendar, maybe Star Wars years are 16 months. Right. I don't know. I don't know if we've got confirmation around like how long each year is.
Oh.
But let's just say, for example of this, for this argument here, let's just say it's 12 months. Okay. Well, this Mando season 3, it seems like there was at least a little bit of time after Book of Boba Fett before season 3 takes place. Let's just give them a month.
Yeah.
September to October. October is when season 3 happens. You know what else is going to be taking place at this time frame? We already had seasons 1, 2, and 3 of Mando. Book of Boba Fett also happens in 9 ABY. And Ahsoka is now being placed in that time slot as well.
Oh my gosh.
And during an interview, they said that Ahsoka is set at the same time as Mando season 3. That's a smart move, I feel like, because they didn't say like a specific time frame. Like they didn't say blah 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 ABY.
Right.
They said it's set at the same time frame as Mando season 3. I don't understand why it needed to be there, but what are your thoughts on this?
I'm so confused. Okay, so you've got these separate seasons of things. I don't like this. It feels very easy. Like, nothing feels worked for if you're putting everything in one little
It's like,
year.
guys, we packed this entire year full of 5 TV shows where so much stuff happens. It's like, do you realize how long... We, don't know how long a year is in Star Wars.
Right.
But let's just say it's 12 months, however that's calculated. Maybe it's the moons around Coruscant sets the whole yearly thing, because each planet would have a different circumference around whatever sun it is based around. So who knows? Yeah, maybe it's like 9 ABY on Tatooine, but it's like 15 ABY on Coruscant.
I mean, it's space we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Maybe we should never have gotten into the weeds of these years, because...
Yeah, but Andor opened up the floodgates. We know this is a real thing because BBY is real. Everything's based off of that. So that's what we know about in Star Wars is this time period. And they refer to it and they ask questions and they answer questions around when things are set in Star Wars and how much time after things are set. There's got to be some kind of exploration here, some kind of like clarity for us to know when things are set. Otherwise, like, I can't tell what the stakes are. Like, if we have 34 years to work with, but every single year is like 15 years worth of content.
Wait, and you're telling me, okay, let's think about Moff Gideon for a second. So
yeah, like he went to prison.
Yeah, he went to prison.
And then like a couple months later, he broke out.
And now he's got this whole hidden...
Fully grown clones.
Yeah, grown clone army of himself. Like, I'm sorry. How, in a year? I mean, sure, maybe he was doing a lot of this all behind the scenes.
That is definitely the case.
For sure.
Every single question we ask can be like, well, he was probably doing this.
No, he was
had a whole
doing
team.
this. Come on. Again, it doesn't feel earned. It doesn't feel like we've experienced this year. Like, it just seems like, oh yeah, we've been doing all these things and now you just get to see the snippets of all of our hard-earned work that we just didn't show. I don't know.
I don't understand too the reason why they're making these decisions, because if they start the Mandoverse at 9 ABY, they have, what is it, like 25 years to work with before they need to end it.
Yeah.
During that 25-year span, we know certain things have to happen. We know Han and Leia get married. We see that through the book. Eventually, they have Kylo as a son. Eventually, he goes into training at the academy that Luke Skywalker built. Eventually, like, there's these key moments that happen during those time frames. So I wonder if they're just trying to capitalize, if they have like a specific time span that they want to work with specifically for the Mandoverse before they get into like the bigger stuff with like Han, Luke, Leia, and Kylo and those kinds of things.
It's a big galaxy though. Like, we don't we can cross these timelines and never see anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay.
I don't think everything has to take place at the exact same time in this time frame. I think there can be a passage of time, and I think that would definitely make more sense that there's more time passed. Ahsoka asks the question, where's Admiral Thrawn? And then later on, maybe it's a year later before she actually sees what comes of that question, like tracking down different clues, talking to Moff Gideon, fighting Moff Gideon. Like, those key moments happen, and it's not like a few months later that she finds out all the details. Maybe it is. It seems like that's what they're giving us, but it's definitely strange that this is the discussion that we're having around the timelines, because apparently Skeleton Crew is going to be set around this time frame as well. I think Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew happen at the same time, which means that Mando season 3 happens at the same time. I don't understand why they need to do this.
Why? That, it, honestly,
and maybe
I
they're
think,
not asking that question.
Yeah, they're probably not. They're probably just like, all this is going to come to a climax, and so it's all kind of just around the same time. I think that's kind of how I want to go into this now. Like, I don't even want to think about timelines. I don't want to think about...
But they just released a book called Star Wars Timelines.
Why?
So,
oh my gosh.
I think this is a part of Star Wars, and this is part of what makes Star Wars fun, is breaking down when things are set, who could possibly come up, and like, especially with the Mandoverse, and especially with Dave Filoni in particular, he's all about the cameos, and he's all about who shows up and when and what makes sense or what doesn't even make sense, like considering how old Cad Bane would be, considering how old Ahsoka might be, considering how these different characters are affecting and like blending from the Clone Wars to the original trilogy to now the New Republic era. There's a lot of this gray area when it comes to when things take place with Star Wars right now.
I'm not loving it. I'm not. It
just makes me confused, and it doesn't feel like they're really taking the effort to really let's sit here and find out when things are set. There needs to be a passage of time. I feel like that would motivate, like it would add some stakes to it. It would add like, okay, and not stakes in terms of like, we know they want to do a lot of stories and like before The Force Awakens takes place. Stakes in terms of in the story, time is passing, things are happening, there's a progression, and it makes sense for certain things to happen at certain times.
Sure, but make it mean something. Like, don't just throw
like
Cad
if season
Bane
2
there.
of Mando takes place, it ends, it's super emotional, we all cry, and then that same year Grogu decides like, peace out, I'm not a Jedi, I'm a Mando boy. In the same year, it definitely seems it lessens that. And people that didn't watch Book of Boba Fett, they felt that lessening of the story when they watched season 3 of Mando. This is the struggle. This is the struggle that they're going to be facing with how much content. But we won't have the struggle for long, because Disney is making those changes to where they're going to have like more thought out decisions on what happens and when, especially when it comes to Disney Plus TV shows and the streaming services that they plan to make content for, especially around these key ideas like Star Wars, Marvel, and the other properties that they have. So I think it's going to be interesting.
Oh, for sure. I just hope that they give it the time that it needs, like just take a minute and think about what you're doing, please.
Yes.
Don't just run headlong into
great.
this. Like,
But let us know your thoughts on the topics that we discussed today. Do you think Dave Filoni knows what the heck he's talking about when it comes to the timeline of Star Wars anymore? Let us know in the comments below. And are you excited for Jedi Survivor 3? Jedi 3. Let us know in the comments below or contact at uplinkpodcast.com. You can listen to the podcast wherever you find podcasts. You can watch the podcast on YouTube. Like to make it as best of an experience as you can. You can pick up on audio and then continue on video or vice versa. As always, thanks for listening, and may the Force be with you.